Well, Mad Dog Russo and I have one thing in common. We're both hosting our shows today despite having ridiculously annoying voices. The differences are my voice will theoretically get better when I'm not sick anymore, and I didn't promise to retire if the D-backs won the NLCS. So, we'll talk about, we're not going to talk much about Mad Dog. Talk about David Peralta. Found out that he played the last half of the season with an injury for the Dodgers. Did the Dodgers know about it? How did they know how bad it was? A lot of questions there because he was not good during the time he was hurt. We'll talk about a little bit about the World Series and former Dodgers who will be playing in the World Series, and we'll dig into some potential free agents, Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu, Yamamoto, and a handful of others. That's what's on tap. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio. We're doing a split episode again today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And that's what we're going to do today. There was actually a little bit of Dodgers news. I guess it's Dodgers news. The person in question isn't technically a free agent yet because free agency doesn't start till after the World Series ends, but theoretically, David Peralta probably isn't going to play for the Dodgers anymore, but we found out on Wednesday that Peralta had elbow surgery repairing a flexor tendon in his elbow from an injury sustained around the All-Star break. And knowing that he was hurt, some things make a little bit more sense now, like the fact that he was really bad at baseball the last half of the season. At the All-Star break, Peralta was batting .283, 323 on base percentage, 434 slugging percentage. That's a 757 OPS, which isn't amazing, but it was solid. 757, better than average. It's from what we expected from Peralta. We were pretty darn happy with what we were getting from Peralta at that point. From the All-Star break to the end of the season, he batted 231, 259 on base percentage, 319 slugging percentage. That's a 578 OPS. That's really, really bad. He hit 0 home runs after the All-Star break. We didn't expect him to be a big home run hitter, but he had 7 at the All-Star break. You know, you would expect he'd end up with 10 or 12. He ended up with 7. And so it was kind of weird. And now it's less weird knowing that he was hurt. The question becomes, how aware were the Dodgers of the injury? And there were some people, my buddy Clint over at Dodgers Nation was a little bit upset because Andrew Friedman at their end of season press conference said that no Dodger players were having any surgeries. And technically that's true because David Peralta is not a Dodger player anymore. His time with the Dodgers is done. But it seems like maybe he didn't want to answer the question of why was Peralta on the postseason roster and starting postseason games if he was hurt. And if it was so obvious he was hurt, because like, it really didn't even cross my mind that Peralta might be hurt, because of course they're not going to keep playing him when he's playing this poorly if he's hurt. So I was holding out hope. Well, maybe he's going to break out of it, and he didn't. But how bad was the injury? Is that the reason he was bad? Did the Dodgers know about it? All of those questions are pretty fair questions at this point. And I wonder how much information we're going to get in the coming days, because it is, obviously David Peralta is not the reason the Dodgers lost the NLDS. In fact, Peralta hit better than some of the guys who were in the lineup. And the alternatives are Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor, who both, have had big postseason moments for the Dodgers in the past, could have done it again, but don't know if they would have. And the fact is, the whole lineup was lousy. The starting pitching was lousy. And so David Peralta isn't the reason they lost the series, but it is a little bit frustrating to see that he played injured when there were other options, especially if it was that long. What was Michael Busch doing back in the minor leagues? And the fact is, David Peralta was a Gold Glove finalist. We talked about this last week. He was surprisingly good, better than the eye test would have suggested, better than we've come to expect from him in the past few years. He was pretty good defensively. Michael Busch probably wouldn't have been that good defensively in left field. But with how well Michael Busch hit in AAA, it's almost impossible to think that he wouldn't have hit better than Peralta did in the big leagues, and given them a better shot. Like Busch, I know Busch is kind of a more complicated subject because he doesn't really have a position. He was a first baseman in college. They moved him to second base in the minor leagues. He's played solid second base. They've moved him to third base to try to get him some reps there. Maybe Busch is the third baseman of the future for the Dodgers. Maybe he's not. He's played some left field. But he is kind of like, the old, I can never remember who this story was about. I think it was Dustin Pedroia, maybe? No. Anyway, somebody, when he went to college and they were introducing themselves, the coach said, say your name and what position you play. And he said, I'm whoever, and I bat third. That was his position. Matt Beatty told us when he was on our podcast that his favorite position is the left-handed batter's box. And, that's kind of Michael Busch. But we could have used that in the left-handed batter's box instead of what Peralta gave the team. And now knowing that he was hurt, you have to assume that the Dodgers knew he was hurt. It's hard to picture them not knowing that he was hurt. And so all in all, knowing that he had this surgery raises a lot of questions that, I assume some of the media will try to get answers from Andrew Friedman and or Dave Roberts about this. I don't know how forthcoming those answers will be. And got a little grief from a listener on Twitter for being hard on Mad Dog Russo yesterday. And this listener said that the LA media is too soft on the Dodgers coaches and front office and need a East Coast type like Mad Dog to rip into them. And my point was, I don't have an issue with Mad Dog's East Coast type or whatever. I have an issue with his terrible voice and the stupid things he says. But you know what? Maybe we do need somebody to ask the hard questions here because it seems, and I say seems because I don't know all the information. I know what I've seen on social media, but from what I've seen, it seems inexcusable to have Peralta starting postseason games when he was hurt so bad. He sucked for 2.5 months leading up to the postseason. And, his defense wasn't that good that it deserved for him to be like Chris Taylor was at least as good as a left fielder and, probably would have hit better. So I'm interested to see if we get any answers on that. Right now, it's more questions than answers. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about some old friends of the Dodgers who will be playing in this World Series. And then I'm going to turn it over to Vince. We put out a call for questions. He's going to talk about some agents, and you know what? I don't know exactly what Vince is going to talk about. We can all be surprised together when we listen, but I will be back to talk about the World Series and some old Dodgers who will be in that World Series. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Ibotta. How does free Thanksgiving sound? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make sure your Thanksgiving table is complete, because who wants turkey without the gravy? Starting November 1st, for the Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can also earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. So download the Ibotta app now and use code MLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code MLB. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers who are with us every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every day. It's a lot of fun. We love talking Dodgers with you. We will be here all off season. Lots to talk about this off season between free agency and awards and all sorts of things. So we will be talking Dodgers with you. And obviously, without games to talk about, we are open to suggestions. So feel free to hit us up with anything you would like for us to talk about. Also want to remind you can catch every World Series game on SiriusXM and the SXM app. Just launch the app and search for World Series. You can also listen to this podcast on the SXM app by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And one last thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comment section. If you are listening on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you through social media or email or whatever. Vince will give you all that contact info at the end of the episode, like he always does. All right, so the World Series, it's the D-backs and the Rangers. As our listener, who was it? I can't find it. Killa B at Killa B10 on Twitter pointed out, this is the first World Series in MLB history where both teams play in a domed stadium. Obviously, the 2020 World Series took place entirely in a domed stadium because it was at a neutral site. But this one, the Rangers and the D-backs both play with retractable roofs. And so doesn't mean that every game will be enclosed, but it does mean we won't have any rain delays like we did in, 2009 between the Yankees and the Phillies. I remember the players wearing those hats with the earmuffs built in. It was terrible weather. If you can imagine terrible weather in New York and Philadelphia in late October, early November. But we won't have to deal with that for this World Series. That's fun. There will be several former Dodgers playing in this World Series. And I'm going to talk about all of them briefly. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think there's anybody on the D-backs who has ever played a major league game for the Dodgers. The closest they come, they had the guy they released, Nick Ahmed, until midway through the season when they released him, and his brother played in the minors for the Dodgers. And then beyond that, a little bit closer, they have two pitchers. You have, I can't remember, Tyler Gilbert, who hasn't been on the postseason roster. I don't know if he's hurt. He didn't pitch for the D-backs after mid-August this year. He came up through the Dodgers minor league system, went to the Dodgers traded him in the Kyle Garlick trade, maybe. Let's see. Tyler Gilbert. Yeah, they got him from the Phillies for Kyle Garlick, and then they lost him to the D-backs in the Rule 5 draft. You remember he threw a no-hitter for the D-backs in one of his first career starts. So he is a connection, but I don't think he'll be on the roster. And then you have Scott McGuff, who a listener of ours, Ryan Shanahan, went to high school with Scott McGuff in Pittsburgh. And McGuff never pitched for the Dodgers in the big leagues, but he came up. He was drafted by the Dodgers out of college in Oregon and played in the minor leagues until the Dodgers traded him to the Marlins in the Hanley Ramirez trade. And interestingly enough, the other guy the Dodgers traded in that trade is playing for the Rangers. That is Nathan Eovaldi, who did pitch in the big leagues for the Dodgers before they traded him with Scott McGuff for Hanley Ramirez and whoever else was in that trade. The Rangers have a handful of other players who have played in the big leagues for the Dodgers. Obviously, Corey Seager is the most notable. He is going for his second World Series title, his second World Series MVP, hopefully. They have Brad Miller, who never played in the big leagues for the Dodgers, but was on their spring training roster a few years back and looked like it had a chance of making the team. And then when they decided he wasn't going to make the team, they released him. He ended up going to the Guardians or Indians or whoever it was back then, I think. So Brad Miller was almost an old friend. They have Josh Spores, who debuted with the Dodgers and eventually, I think he was a Rule 5 pick too, if I remember right. Went to the Rangers. No, it wouldn't be a Rule 5 pick because he was on the 40-man roster. But anyway, he went to the Rangers from the Dodgers and has pitched pretty well for the Rangers this year. They have, we said Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, obviously, Andrew Heaney. It might just be those guys. But that's what, 5 former Dodgers. And then, yeah, it's a, so there will be former Dodgers represented. If that gives you a reason to root for anybody, I know a lot of people will be rooting against the D-backs because they beat the Dodgers. I know others who will be rooting for the D-backs because it makes them feel a little bit better if the team that beats the Dodgers win the World Series. I don't know who I'll root for. I think the Rangers, just because my wife went to high school in the Dallas area when she didn't grow up caring much about baseball, but when she did go to games, it was Rangers games because the stadium in Arlington was just, half hour, 40 minutes from where she lived. She grew up closer to the Rangers than I did to the Dodgers. And I really like the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex area. Not Arlington itself so much, but the area. My wife went to high school in Plano. I like that area a lot. Plano and Frisco, uh, Denton, that area. Um, and I was rooting for the Rangers a lot in 2010, obviously, because they were playing the Giants in the World Series. Rooting for them in 2011, just because my in-laws were still there in Texas at the time, and so they were pretending to be Rangers fans, and they never won it. And the Rangers have still never won a World Series. So a lot of reasons for me to root for them. So I think that's what I'm doing. Corey Seager, though, might be the main reason. Love us some Corey Seager, and so, but there are some Dodgers ties in there, and obviously, Nathan Eovaldi also has Dodger ties in the other way. He's the one who gave up the home run to Max Muncy in the 18th inning of Game 3 of the 2018 World Series. And they have a handful of guys. Ian Kennedy pitched for them some this year. He's a Dodgers foe. Austin Hedges is a Dodgers foe. Handful of those guys, but for the most part, former Dodgers. A lot of them to see in the World Series, and hopefully next year we can just watch a bunch of current Dodgers in the World Series. So that's going to do it for me for today. I'm going to turn it over to Vince. He's going to finish this episode up. Hopefully I'll be feeling and sounding a little bit better tomorrow. But either way, we'll be here with you to record an episode for tomorrow to finish out the week. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being an everydayer. And Vince will be along in a minute.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Are you ready for another pandemic? Well, hopefully not, but if you want to be ready in case it does happen, Jace Medical is here to help you out because they have the Jace case, which is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. We never know what's going to happen, and you always want to be prepared. And one of those preparedness beyond food, beyond water, beyond some of the other essentials out there is life-saving antibiotics, and most people don't have that. And Jace Medical is here to kind of change that, to give you what you need in case of global supply chain shortages. If you're in California, the big earthquake. If you're in other parts of the country, tornadoes and hurricanes and things of that nature. Hopefully all that doesn't happen, but if it does, you can be ready with Jace case from Jace Medical. So go check it out right now. And it's easy. All you got to do is go online, sign up, potentially meet with the doctor real quick, and boom, you got your Jace case coming to you in not that long a time. And the best part is you can keep consultations going with those doctors and make sure that everything's good. So go to jasemedical.com right now, and if you enter the code locked on, you get a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code locked on at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code locked on. Go get your Jace case today. Yo, Dodger fans, welcome to Locked On Dodgers, or my part of Locked On Dodgers. You've already been here with Jeff, but now you're here with me, and I'm here to close out the episode. And there's still not a lot of going on in Dodger world other than the Peralta news that Jeff talked about. There's not even as many rumors as some people may think in terms of what may happen once free agency does technically start here in the next couple weeks after the World Series ends. But there is a lot of thoughts and speculation and maybe not so much news, but more thoughts and speculation of Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who are probably the 2 biggest free agents right now in this coming offseason. Would have been the top 2 pitching free agents, but Ohtani can't pitch next year. I guess he still could technically be considered a pitching free agent, but he's more of a hitting free agent that might pitch after a year off. So see what happens there. But there hasn't been much on the front of other than, like I said, just thoughts, speculations, rumors. And when it comes to Ohtani and Yamamoto, I don't imagine there to be too much in the sense of exactly what they're thinking, exactly what they're doing. Usually you don't get the sense that their agents are petitioning too much, or trying to position themselves in a certain way. Could be wrong, and it could be not be the case. If I was Otani's agent, I definitely would be putting out the Dodgers and Yankees and Mets and all those teams with big money. I definitely would be throwing out rumors that they're interested, or something that can link Ohtani to them. Be like, oh, he wants to play for winter. He wants to play on the East Coast, wants to play on the West Coast, whatever the case is. But for the most part, take anything you see or read about Ohtani or Yamamoto with a grain of salt, unless it's coming directly from Ohtani or Yamamoto or their camps, agents, stuff like that. But there are a couple notes about them that we can definitely talk about. And first off, one of them is the new manager in San Francisco, Bob Melvin. He has some connections to Japan and overseas, in the sense of uh, he has strong ties. He's worked with Ichiro. He's worked with Nomo in the past, Hassan Kim right now, recently with the Padres. He's been their manager. When he was with Oakland, they had the Japan series, I think once or twice, where they opened up in Japan. So to that extent, people might believe that he has some type of tie or extra oomph on their side. I don't know exactly how much that'll play out, because it's really going to come down to Farhan Zaidi and their ownership in terms of how much money they want to spend. But it obviously could link them to Ohtani and or Yamamoto, and definitely they have the money to spend. They tried to spend it last offseason, didn't quite work out. And it really appears that their ownership realizes that they're losing fans and losing games, losing fans, and really need an established star to kind of bring people back to what is now called Oracle Park. So I would expect the Giants to definitely be players for each of those guys, and definitely be competition for the Dodgers, uh, just for the simple sense that they have the money and they are West Coast. And, if there's any of those rumors out there that they want to be West Coast, that kind of fits there. When it comes to Ohtani, we had recently Joe Madden spoke about Ohtani and what he thinks. Again, I don't know if Joe Madden, I don't think, I'm of the thought that nobody knows what Ohtani's thinking or has preference or anything like that, but people are going to keep talking about it. And, people keep talking about it, we can mention it. But everything that we talk about Ohtani wise, for me, has a caveat of, if it's not from Ohtani or his agent directly, I take it with a grain of salt. But, Madden did say that he does believe that Ohtani wants to win, that it's not just lip service. He said he truly wants to win. I do believe that he's going to go to a team that, in his mind's eye, could be an annual contender, annually get him to the playoffs, annually give him that opportunity to pitch and hit on the largest stage. He also added that he believes that the West Coast thing maybe was a thing when he first got here, and things of that, but he doesn't think that that's the case now. He says that he'll go anywhere from New York to Toronto to Seattle to San Diego. He'll go anywhere, because I think he's been more Americanized, in the sense that he's comfortable with a lot of different things. He knows how this works. And I do believe that he's not going to close himself off to any particular coast. I don't think he's going to close himself. I don't think he's going to do anything that closes him off from a team that could give him money. What we don't know, and what we may not know until he actually signs, is, how important is the winning in comparison to the money? Because, how much is that winning worth? Is it worth 50 mil? Is it worth 100 mil? Is it worth, 25 mil? Is it, if he has the same offer from a team like the Dodgers, who are in the playoffs every year, but has, 100 million more offer for, let's just throw the Royals out there for right now, who, weren't very good last year, and probably won't be good for a while. will that make a difference to him? Will that winning culture and being in the postseason make a difference? And how much is that difference? And we don't know, but obviously everything that's kind of been named in terms of what Ohtani could want, West Coast wants to win, blah, blah, blah. It all, the money, it all lends itself to the Dodgers. And, obviously you're going to want to lend yourself to the Dodgers if you're a free agent and you want other teams to kind of bid on your services. So I do think, and, there's been reports out there. I think Bob Nightingale had a report the other day that he reported that the Dodgers' first priority this offseason is signing Shohei Ohtani. He also mentioned both New York teams and the Padres as somebody that could link to him. And then he predicted that the Dodgers or someone else predicted that Ohtani signed an 8-year deal with the Dodgers. So, Ohtani is obviously going to be the big one. And for me, obviously, it can go a few ways. Like, I don't know if the Dodgers, it's a matter of, does it help the team or does it help the organization? And I think those are two different questions. Does Ohtani help the team? Obviously, on the offensive side, he would help the team. And then, it would be determined after this first year if he can help the team on the pitching side. But let's just say he does command $40-50 million a year. There's no salary cap, but does it prevent the Dodgers from spending like they could if they didn't have him? Like, would $40-50 million a year be better spent on Ohtani or on like two pitchers, like maybe Yamamoto and Blake Snell, or on, another hitter and another pitcher, or something to that extent, if it is either or? Now, for the Dodgers, it doesn't have to be either or, but they might have a payroll number in mind where it does become either or. And that's really what it comes down to, is what the Dodgers are looking for. And, does that matter? If I'm Dodger ownership, and Shohei Ohtani is going to bring me an extra $50-100 million in revenue because of new Japanese sponsors, because of, just the Dodgers already have really good fans coming to the game. But if Ohtani's here, like, that brings another, demographic in bulk to Dodger Stadium. Do they care? And do they say, what? We don't care so much about if it matches with the team. If I'm Dodger ownership, I say go get Ohtani because we want that extra revenue, and that'll pay for his salary in a sense, as well as beyond that. And, that might be something that happens. And the Dodgers could benefit that way too. So there's not a lot to helm from this. I think Jeff Passan at one point had said that the Dodgers are one of the, or one of their priorities will be to sign Ohtani. So we keep seeing that. But again, I take it all with a grain of salt. It's because we don't really know. But I do expect that the Giants will be in contention. And I do believe that the Mets will be in contention. And then any other team can jump in. But I do think that, the teams with deeper pockets, in the sense of they've spent before and they have owners willing to spend, I definitely think those two teams are so to look out for, and we'll see what happens. But in the sense of Yamamoto, the Dodgers have kind of been mentioned with him too. Dodgers, Giants, Yankees were mentioned as three teams that are interested in signing him. The Mets have been named one of those teams interested in signing with him. Supposedly Kodai Senga, one of the reports is that Kodai Senga, who's on the Mets now, is trying to recruit him. And then one of the reports on Yamamoto is that he covets the opportunity to play in a large market. So obviously Los Angeles, a large market, and it's just a matter of if the Dodgers are going to invest in that sense. And it's one of those where I think they should really consider looking into this investment, because in the end, I don't think he'll get over 200 million. If you can get a guy that can be your number one or two pitcher for 100 mil, 130 mil even, I do think that's something you really have to consider. And I do think that's, he's a guy that after seeing the success of Senga, and even in the past, pitches that have come over from Japan, while they don't always work out, even some of the ones that weren't as heralded or didn't have the stuff that Yamamoto had. Like, Yamamoto has nasty stuff, has the velocity, has everything else. Even players like, we've seen Hiroki Kuroda do well over here. We've seen, guys like that. Or Saito as a reliever. We've seen guys have success here, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be because of velocity. So I think the Dodgers will for sure be in on Ohtani and Yamamoto. To the extent I don't know, and who they will be competing against, I don't know, but I do think that's two guys that they'll be after this offseason. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. We put out a call for questions yesterday. We got some. We should be answering some of those this week on tomorrow's episode, and continue to bring questions, comments, and topics throughout the offseason as we're here every weekday morning for you, wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. Remember, you can find us also on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us on either of those accounts to get a hold of us. You can also send voicemail or text to 863-323-863-LOCK, or you can send us an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you're in your car, if you're at home, text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.